Hi my dear friends, in question 21, all of the following facilitates the return of venous blood to the heart in mammals, except, you know what's meant by venous blood? The blood of veins. First of all, you should remember that we have a heart, okay, and it pushes the blood into arteries, and arteries will divide into arterioles, and arterioles will divide into blood capillaries. After that, the blood capillaries will collect the blood again from different body tissues to be collected in venules, and many venules will be collected into veins that pour again into the heart. So human heart needs a support to help returning back again from the different blood tissues towards the heart. Take care, because you are searching for something wrong. Number A, reclining or lying flat on the floor. No, it's help in returning blood back to the heart. Contracting the skeletal muscles. Sure, it helps. Contracting diaphragm during breathing. Also, it helps. Voluntarily contracting the veins. Sure, this is the needed answer because the contraction of the veins is happening involuntarily. Having one-way valve also help returning blood back. Number 22. Plants are broadly defined as multicellular, photosynthetic, and eukaryotic. Which of the following is not an additional feature of this group? Number A, plants can respond to changes in day length. No, it's related to the plant. Plants have cell wall containing cellulose. Sure. Plant chloroplast contain chlorophyll A and B. Sure. Plants have starch as primary storage carbohydrate. Yes, sure, after making photosynthesis. Number E, plant respiration is most anaerobic. No, it must be corrected into aerobically. Question number 23. Many species of orchids are pollinated only by a single species of insects, so they depend on each other. Why? Because orchids depend on insects for pollination, and sure, the insects can get their own food from these orchid flowers. So this for something called coevolution. Coevolution happens when two different species like orchids and insects give rise to certain pollination pattern or specific relationship. So this is the right answer. Number 24. The first vaccine made from cowpox virus, developed by Edward Jenner in 1700s, inoculated people against smallpox. You can understand now that something happened by lot. We give vaccination against the cowpox virus. We surprised that it can cure some people against smallpox. So the good answer, the causative agent of smallpox has been identified. No, because it didn't mention here. Vaccine contained material that killed the smallpox pathogen. It's wrong because vaccination doesn't contain any toxic material, but we give vaccination in the form of weak or dead or some toxins of bacteria, for example, to the living organism so that its immune system will respond by forming antibodies that will stay in his blood for a long time. So this was wrong. Smallpox was spreading rapidly throughout Europe and Asia. It's not mentioned here. Nobody knows. Number D, cowpox virus contain an oncogene that can enter the host and incorporate into chromosome. It's not mentioned here. Number E, cowpox and smallpox viruses are sufficiently similar that cowpox can stimulate the immune system against smallpox because they are very similar to each other. So the right answer is E. 25. Which of the following is generally true about parasites? You know, parasites are divided into external parasites or internal parasites. In external, like mosquitoes and ticks. Internal, like bilharzia worm or ascaris worm or ankylostoma worms. Sure, it's not good for the different parasites to kill their host because they depend on it as a shelter and a source of food. So they give their host a competitive advantage? No, because they harm it. They are not a factor in the size of host population. Sure, not because the host population is severely affected by the infection with different. It decreases its vitality and its general health. Number C, they increase the biotic potential for host population? No, they will decrease. They do not directly kill their host. Yes, this is a good answer because parasites do not need to kill their host directly because they depend on it for food and shelter. They prevent natural selection. There is no natural selection and the host population. Which of the following is an advantage of asexual reproduction? You know that we have two different types of reproduction. The first one is called asexual, while the second is called sexual. There is positive and negative. Here also it has a positive and a negative side. The positive side of asexual reproduction that it's fast and give large number of offspring, and also it doesn't need a lot of energy. But the negative that the individuals have no genetic variation, so they are not adapted to the environmental conditions. Unlike the sexual reproduction, its offspring are usually adapted because there is a genetic variation among them. But the negative that the sexual reproduction needs a long time for the offspring to reach maturity, and also it needs a lot of energy. Adaptive traits are passed from parents to offspring without genetic rearrangement. It's accepted because some traits in some bacteria, for example, or some fungi, for example, the resistance of certain type of antibiotics, so it can be inherited without any genetic rearrangement. This is true. Number B, offspring can make use of a wider variety of resources. No, that is related only to sexual reproduction. Number C, asexual organisms thrive under continuously changing. No, we mentioned that they are not adapted. Number D, asexual organisms are intolerant of overcrowded conditions. It doesn't matter if they are existing inside a free area or wide area or overcrowded conditions. Number E, mutations cannot be passed from one generation to the next. Scientifically wrong, because mutation can be inherited through generation once they exist inside the sexual cells or gametes. In question 27, according to Hardy-Weinberg principle, which of the following would help to maintain gene frequencies in large population over time? In Hardy-Weinberg principle, they said that the allele frequencies stay in any population if some conditions are kept or stayed under control. The most important one of them, a random mating between the different individuals within a population. But we don't need any other factor to keep the gene frequencies in any large population. Number 28, pheromones produced by moths primarily affect finding of mates. Pheromones, something like perfume, and they are hormones that can spread through air, and they form signals for different mates. So it's a message to say it's a time for reproduction. But it doesn't affect the caring of young or execretion or nest building behavior or metamorphosis, which is controlled by molting hormone. Question 29. All of the following are characteristics of the members of phylum Chordates. This is phylum number 9 of Animal Kingdom, and it has different characteristics because we are searching for something wrong. Bilateral symmetry, no, they have bilateral symmetry. Dorsal hollow nerve cord, no, they have that. An external skeleton, yes, because they have an internal skeleton in the form of bones or cartilage or both. Gill slit at some developmental stage, yes, by embryology we said that human, for example, has gill slits that changes into Eustachian tube in the future. A notochord at some development stage, yes, and sometimes it remains forever, and sometimes it develops into a vertebral column. Number 30, experiments revealed the following information about molecule Z. It is a high molecular weight polymer that can be broken down into amino acids, so it's a protein. It can break down proteins into amino acids, so it helps in hydrolysis. So what is it? It's an enzyme. It's found in high concentration in the first section of the small intestine here. This is the first section of the small intestine. It's called duodenum, where the pancreas especially start to produce and pour its secretion. So this molecule Z mainly found in pancreas, muscle, pituitary gland, testis, or colon, so it's a very direct question in pancreas. 31. All of the following provide evidence of evolutionary relationship between two organisms except A. Fossil record, number B. Radioactive carbon dating, number C. Comparative anatomy, number D. Nucleotide sequences, number E. Amino acid sequences. What do you think? I think that some students can be confused between A and B. You can see that the fossil record will search for differences or similarities between different fossils, and it can relate different species or different organisms to a specific time or specific era. But the radioactive carbon dating searching only for the age of rocks. But here in the question we are talking about organisms, not the rocks. So the accepted answer is B, and after that all of them will be true. Number 32, which of the following was not used by Mendel in his study of genetics of garden peas? Maintenance of true breeding lines. No, in most cases he started his cross with B capital against B small. So this is a purebred organism, and also that one is a purebred organism, recessive. Number B, cross-pollination. Cross-pollination means to transfer pollen grain from the anther of the flower to the stigma of another flower. Okay, he used that also. Phylogeny is something related to classification, okay, or searching for relationship or evolution across different species or different classes, or relatedness between organisms and so on. So it's not studied by Mendel, but studied, for example, by Darwin. Production of hybrid plants, no, it's needed. Quantitative analysis of results, he made some statistical problems and laws, and sometimes he said 100%, some other time he said 75% and 25%, or 3/4, 1/4, or some other time we can say that he reached 50% and 50% of the offspring will be, and so on. 33. All the following occurs during fertilization in flowers or in the flowering plants, except this is a pistil and it contains ovule, and this is a male reproductive organ, I mean anther. Inside the anther we have pollen grains, and the pollen grain during maturation will, this sac will explode and the pollen grain spread in air. This pollen grain will penetrate the tissue of stigma, style, and ovary until they reach to the ovum or ovule to fertilize it and change into seeds. Ovules are transferred from one plant to another. It's not accepted because ovules are usually stagnant or stable, so they are not movable or mobile. A pollen tube is formed? No, it's formed. One sperm nucleus fuses with an egg nucleus to form zygote? Yes, it's true. One another sperm nucleus fuses with the two polar nuclei to form endosperm tissue, which is a nutritive tissue for the embryo. The pollen tube enters the ovary? Yes, sure, the pollen tube must enter inside the ovary to clear the way for one or two pollen grains, so the fertilization occurs. 34. Segregation of homologous chromosome pair occurs during which of the following phases of meiosis? A quick hint about homologous chromosomes. You know that the male gamete contain definite number of chromatids, like that. For example, in human, they are 23 chromosomes in the form of chromatids, and the female ovum, like that, contains another similar number of chromosomes, like that, chromatid. During fertilization, each one of them will search for the corresponding one or the very similar one. They are very similar to each other in the size, shape, and the type of gene that is carried, but they have different alleles. After aggregation, they form pairs like that. This one came from father in the sperm, while that one came from mother in the ovum. So they are called homologous chromosomes. During S phase, or after finishing S phase, every one of them will make an exact copy for it, and then they are called homologous chromosomes again. Homologous chromosomes usually separated away from each other as a whole chromosome, not chromatid, during anaphase 1. 35. How many atoms participate in the following reaction? Participate means enter the reaction. Look, this is the reactants, and the question asks about them. Let's count. 6 CO2. How many atoms in this carbon dioxide? 1 carbon and 2 oxygen, so the total is 3 plus 6. Molecules of water, H2 plus 1, so they are also 3. 18 plus another 18 equals 36. So the right answer is C. 36. Which of the following statements best describe a unique advantage of amniotic egg? Once you see that word, you should remember something that resists dryness. All living organisms lay eggs except mammals that give birth. Fish, for example, lay their eggs in water, so they don't need a hard shell or amniotic fluid around the embryo. But really, the amniotic eggs can protect the embryo inside the eggshell against dehydration or dryness. So you will search for that information. Yes, C. It prevents dehydration of eggs in terrestrial environment. So what are the organisms that can lay amniotic eggs? They include reptiles and birds. 37. Oxygen produced during photosynthesis comes from which of the following? The oxygen produced during photosynthesis comes from the water during photolysis of water by the effect of light. 38. During digestion, large organic molecules are hydrolyzed to simple molecular units. Which of the following is not an example of such hydrolysis? So you are searching for something wrong. DNA to RNA, sure, that is the needed answer. Why? Because both of them are polymers. DNA should be hydrolyzed into nucleotides, not into an RNA. Starch to glucose, yes, because that one is a polysaccharide, and while glucose is a monosaccharide, like that. Polypeptide into amino acid, it's true, because you know that the polypeptide chain contains a definite number of amino acids. Fats to glycerol and fatty acid, yes, because fats consist of glycerol connected to 3 fatty acid chains. Fatty acid number 1, fatty acid number 2, fatty acid number 3. They are connected to 1 glycerol. This is called a simple lipid. So all of them are true except the first one. In question 39, for a mutation to be significant or obvious or clear for the process of evolution, it must be present in, what do you think? For any mutation to be inherited through generation and can cause evolution, it must be found in gametes. Question number 40. Yeast cells, which are eukaryotic, can contain plasmid. You know plasmid? Small circular piece of DNA in their nuclei. When the plasmid contains a centromere, let's draw a simple centromere here. The plasmid is often transmitted to daughter cells during mitosis. Splits longitudinally like that, and each strand will take half of the centromere and goes to one cell. So this centromere helps the attachment of spindle fibers, separating the two circles of DNA found in the plasmid. So the presence of that, when the plasmid doesn't contain a centromere, the plasmid is not usually transmitted to daughter cells during mitosis. What is the best explanation of that observation? You can say that the centromere allows the attachment of mitotic spindle. This is the main function of centromere, and I think that is a true answer. Choice number B, the centromere allow chromosome pairing. Wrong. The centromere contain microtubule filaments, not a centromere that do that. Centromere contains microtubule filaments. It's not related to the centromere. The centromere has no place for containing microtubules. Microtubules are attached to the centriole or central body. D. The plasmid hydrolyzed by enzyme found in the centromere. Something fake. Number E, plasmids move to the middle of the cell. Plasmids do not move to the middle of the cell because they are not chromosomes. Chromosomes only move during metaphase to the equatorial line or the middle of the cell. So the true answer is A.